about Islamic faith and practice, developing interfaith opportunities for students in collaboration with the Spiritual Life Office, and mentoring student organization leadership. So without further ado, please help me in welcoming Brother Tahir Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. First, I want to thank the Muslim Student Association here at Loyola University for inviting me. I'm privileged and honored to be here. I also want to thank the MSA President, Sharifa Abdullah. Is she here?
She's coming.
MashaAllah. For inviting me, essentially. I mean, she would send me emails at wee hours in the morning telling me exactly what I needed to do. And I'm honored to be here. I also want to acknowledge and thank my friend and my advisor and one of my colleagues, Omar Muzaffar, Professor Omar Muzaffar. And I also want to congratulate him on his appointment as the Muslim chaplain here at the University of Loyola. So how many of you actually fasted today? Raise your hand. You've done something very powerful. You've done something very special. And I want to congratulate you as well for participating in this spiritual exercise of determination and will and solidarity that is fasting. And when we talk about fasting, at least from the Islamic perspective, we're talking about voluntarily, on some instances, like what you did today, voluntarily abstaining from food and drink. In the Islamic tradition, during the daylight hours, we not only abstain from food and drink, but we also abstain from intimate sexual relations. But I happen to know that no students at the University of Loyola are sexually active, so that doesn't apply to you. But there is also a fast that Muslims do that is not voluntary, and that is the fast of the month of Ramadan. This is a prescription in the Quran and from Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, for Muslims and believers to fast. The Quran says about this, "O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you, just as it was prescribed to those who came before you, in order that you may be conscious and vigilant of God, meaning that you hold yourself accountable." And we also have numerous traditions from Prophet Muhammad concerning the importance of watching the amount of food we consume and being mindful that we don't overeat and overconsume. Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said in this regard, struggle against your lower self, your animal self, by means of hunger and thirst, for truly the reward in that is like the reward of someone who struggles in the way of God. There is no action more beloved to Allah, more beloved to God than hunger and thirst, meaning as a devotional practice, voluntary devotional practice as in fasting. And again, Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said, do not kill your hearts with too much eating and drinking. Truly the heart is like a plot of earth. It dies if too much water is supplied to it. And this kind of prefaces my remarks a bit because I'm not a doctor actually, even though I really appreciate that compliment. I'm not a doctor in either the social sciences or the humanities or in the physical sense. So most of what I have to say today is very much informed by the Islamic tradition of spirituality. Some people call it tazkiyat al-nafs, the purification of the soul. Some people call it tasawwuf, the purification of the heart. But my remarks today are very much informed by this science and this history and this legacy of Islam, where fasting becomes a way to train the soul, to train the ego, and to train the human being to reach new heights, right? It becomes a catalyst for you to act, right? It becomes the kind of engine, if you will, for you to move forward, not only spiritually, but in the world, even though you have obstacles that may be assailing you. So why is fasting important? We mentioned this briefly. The goal and the point of fasting is first for you to be transformed, right? And for you to become more conscious conscious, for us to become more conscious in our relationship with the Creator or the divine and everything around us. This is done by abstaining from things in the material world, fasting from things, right, that are not harmful in and of themselves, right? Good food, particularly when it's nutritious. Good drink, water, when it's clean and potable, right? Intimate relations with one another, right? These things are some of the best things in the world. There's nothing wrong with them in and of themselves. In fact, they lead to optimum health, right? When they're done in a state of consciousness, right? When they're done with good intentions and when they're done with responsibility. Food, drink, and intimate relations with others, right? These things are beautiful things. But like anything, when it's done in excess, it can harm the body, right? It can cause serious damage to the human being. And so we want to be mindful of that, and fasting helps us take a pause from these things, and it's a way of cleaning house, if you will. Fasting, of course, is an ancient tradition that precedes Islam. All of the Abrahamic faiths, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, incorporate this spiritual practice of fasting as a part of their devotion. There are also the Dharmic traditions, spiritual practices from the subcontinent of India as well as Asia, Buddhism, Hinduism, the Sikh tradition, right? And then you have the Taoist tradition. All of them incorporate this idea of fasting and spiritual discipline to reach enlightenment, to reach a heightened sense of awareness and consciousness of the Creator and the divine. We also know that fasting has many health benefits. In fact, there was a study done this year at the University of Southern California which mentioned that cycles of prolonged fasting not only protect against immune system damage, which is often caused by the side effects of chemotherapy, but also included immune system regeneration, shifting stem cells from a dormant state to a state of renewal. In other words, prolonged periods without food, your body does something very miraculous. It takes damaged cells and old cells and it destroys them. And then it renews other stem cells in your body, right? So out with the old, in with the new. And your body does this on a cellular level when you fast, right? But we didn't need this online scientific journal to tell us that, right? People throughout the world for thousands of years have deployed this exercise of fasting as a means of not only cleansing and regenerating their physical bodies, but rejuvenating their spiritual hearts, right, and minds and souls in a way to bring about equilibrium with the entire body itself. This is a practice that has occurred for over thousands of years. In fact, for those of you who have fasted today, this is a very special time for many Muslims. This is a very special month. This is a sacred month. And I'm not just talking about November, right? In addition to it being November, this is the month of Muharram. This is the first month on the Islamic lunar calendar. And today is a very special day. It's the 10th day in this special month on the Islamic lunar calendar called Muharram, right? And some Muslims on this day fast. Right? They fast because they believe that this day, the 10th day on this Islamic lunar month, this special sacred month, is a day in which God gave salvation to the prophets that came before, like Noah and Jonah and Moses, right? And so Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was about the habit of fasting on this day, right? Not all Muslims fast on this day. There are other Muslims who take this day as a day of commemoration and mourning because of the sacrifice made by the Prophet's family, Prophet Muhammad's family, peace be upon him, and more specifically his grandson Imam Hussein, who was killed and martyred, protecting the weak, protecting the oppressed, protecting the poor, and going to their aid. So this is a very special day. And although the Muslim Student Association didn't plan this, I think personally that it's fortuitous that we've all gathered here on this day because this idea of fasting, right, to first refine and renew ourselves and as a catalyst to raise people's consciousness about hunger. In addition to our intention and concern for those who are oppressed, those who have less than we do, is rather fortuitous, and it's the reason that we're here today. And so I think that that's actually a blessing that we were able to do that even though it wasn't planned. Therefore, the voluntary fast that you performed as an act of scrupulous piety that hones and refines yourself and your character helps produce this quality of discernment such that one may distinguish between what is right and fair from what is wrong and unjust, what is ugly with regard to one's character from what is beautiful, wisdom from stupidity and ignorance. And it makes us think about whether or not we are producers as opposed to consumers who simply produce tons and tons of waste. And how is this done? When fasting is done with a strong presence of heart and mind, you see these dichotomies in yourself, as well as these contradictions, because all you have is time. Right? If this was your first time fasting from dusk to dawn, you realize one thing very quickly when 11 o'clock came, when 12 o'clock came. I have all this time. Right? So what am I going to do with it? Right? Everybody around you is eating. Right? And you also realize how much of our time is structured around figuring out when we're going to eat, what we're going to eat, and where we're going to eat. But when you eliminate that, you develop a different kind of awareness for other things that are around you, and it allows you to be able to take in other things. We can think about things more deeply and become conscious of what we're doing and why we're doing them. It is the mind, body, and the spiritual heart. The spiritual heart is very important to us as Muslims. Not the physical heart necessarily, but it is connected to the physical heart. If you want to imagine it as the locus of your spiritual center, right? From the place from where your deepest emotions emanate, and the thing that makes you whole, this spiritual heart. Fasting is a way of your spiritual heart taking a pause. And sometimes we need to pause and take a step back in order to be more focused and attentive to our own behavior, and fasting allows us the opportunity to do that. This is why many traditions say good character begins in the stomach. This is where self-discipline and self-mastery begins. This is why we train children how to eat at the dinner table. All of our passions and all of our appetites are rooted in the stomach, and if the stomach is not under control, we just put whatever we want to in it, whenever we want, however we want. It makes the heart dead. It makes the spiritual heart dead. However, if our stomachs are disciplined, it leads to moral, ethical, and spiritual gifts. Disciplined hunger is one of the keys to self-mastery, and training oneself through hunger helps develop perceptivity. Right? In Islam, we call this basira, which is like inner sight. That is, what our physical eyes process and see are given more meaning because of the heightened levels of sensitivity that fasting produces. One of the famous Muslim theologian by the name of Imam Ghazali, some of you probably studied him in your philosophy classes. Philosophers are very fond of Imam Ghazali because he did a taxonomy of many of the sciences, philosophy included. He says that there are 4 basic tasks regarding one's stomach that you should think about. He said, eat and drink what is good for your bodies, because to eat and drink what is harmful for the body, and then to speak about the truth and justice and compassion and equality is like trying to build a castle on top of waves. You don't have anything to stand on. You don't have any foundation to stand on. Then he said, limit the amount of food you eat to something that is manageable, something that doesn't make you bloated and suffering from satiety. Then he said, restricting the times that you eat, meaning not eating all day, every day, any time of the day. And finally, he said, seeking out food that is best for you, which contains the most nutritional value and the most health benefit. The point is that this discipline is not designed to hurt you. It's not designed to harm you, and it shouldn't harm you. It should make you better mentally and physically and spiritually. What we should eat and how we should eat varies from one person to another. Do what you are capable of doing without overeating, because this is self-abuse and we're often not aware that we are hurting ourselves when we do this. The opposite is also true. In the case of anorexia and eating disorders, where people are not comfortable with their own bodies and so they starve themselves. We don't want to be at either end of those extremes. The middle way is the best way, which is the way of moderation. Likewise, the practice of eating as a spiritual discipline involves not consuming that extra morsel that can be abusive to the self. This is why you find the practice of fasting and voluntary hunger among the sages and saints and people who we look to as role models of truth and justice, these champions of truth, so to speak. And here I would like to mention 10 advantages of fasting taken from a book written by a Muslim sage by the name of Uthman Dan Fodio. And Uthman Dan Fodio was a famous scholar from West Africa. He was from northern Nigeria, and he lived during the 19th century. And interestingly enough, he wrote this book and entitled it Mobilization of the Champions of Truth into the Presence of Sanctity. So many of us here want to be champions of truth. We want to be champions of justice, right? And how ironic is it then that the first thing that he said one has to do is watch what they consume. You want to be a champion of truth? Then watch what you put in your belly, right? And be mindful of individuals who don't have enough to put in their belly. He said there are 10 qualities that will make a person a champion of truth. The first is that when one takes on hunger as a discipline through fasting, it causes purity of the heart and provides penetrating inner vision, while being full and sated produces stupidity and blindness of the heart. He's talking about your spiritual heart, your ability to feel, right? The benefit of hunger voluntarily through fasting induces gentleness of the heart, and it produces a type of clarity which makes the heart prepared for the perception of the delights of intimate conversation with God or the divine. And it prepares the heart for the effects of the remembrance of the truth, what is just, compassion, and mercy. Another advantage of fasting is that it produces remorse and humility and the reduction of the size of your belly. Right? Pragmatic function. While the absence of hunger produces greed and gluttony and a kind of malevolence that instigates rebellion and heedlessness to the truth, to justice, to compassion, and mercy. Nothing makes the soul more contrite, meaning the nafs, right? Your ego, than hunger. Thus, through voluntary hunger, one becomes tranquil and still. Another advantage of fasting is that it causes a person not to forget the afflictions and hardships that may befall them or others. And one does not forget the people who are afflicted with hardships. While being full, on the other hand, makes a person forget about all of those who are in need. Another advantage, and this is considered by him to be the most important advantage of fasting, is that it shatters the appetite for defiance and recalcitrance, or stubbornness, that stems from one's ego. And it does this completely while conquering the soul that commands people to do evil to others. Right? This is what caused the Prophet Muhammad's wife to say, Aisha. She said, the first heretical innovation that occurred after the death of the Prophet, peace be upon him, was people filling their bellies. This is what she said. The sixth advantage is that fasting helps ward off sleep and causes a person to be persistent in their wakefulness. This is because overeating causes one to sleep excessively. It is for this reason that one spiritual master once said to his group of disciples, O assembly of seekers, do not eat a lot or you will drink a lot. This will induce you to sleep a lot, and this will in turn induce you to forfeit a lot. Right? Used to be a song by a group called Outkast. I used to listen to back in the day. They used to say, get up, get out, and get something. Right? You can't do that when you sleep all the time. Right? You have to get going. You have to get moving. The world is out there. The seventh advantage, he says, of discipline through fasting is that it helps a person remain persistent in their piety. Eating too much prevents this. And then he has a subsection where he says there are 6 things that being too full and eating too much cause. It results in the loss of the sweetness of prayer, meditation, and reflection. It results in the impossibility of preserving divine wisdom. It prevents one from having compassion for people, because when a person is full, they consider that everybody is full. Right? I've eaten my fill, others must be eating their fill as well. It results in aggravation during worship, devotion, spiritual devotion, or meditation. It results in the increase of corrupt desires. It results in the remainder of the disciples on the spiritual path frequenting places of prayer, meditation, and reflection, while the person whose belly is full frequents the toilet. Right? Everybody else who's out Right? Meditating, getting their Zen on, running back and forth to the bathroom. The eighth advantage is that decreasing the amount of food that one eats leads to a healthy appearance. The ninth advantage is that fasting reduces financial expenditure. This is because whoever is used to eating a little voluntarily will be satisfied with a modest income, while one who is accustomed to eating their fill day and night, their stomach will become like a debt collector that says to them every day, "What will we eat today? When will you feed me?" Thus, the person will be compelled to enter all sorts of pursuits. And finally, the last advantage that he mentions from voluntary hunger through fasting as a spiritual discipline is that decreasing one's consumption of food causes a person to be firmly established in the virtue of self-sacrifice in giving their surplus food in charity to orphans, the destitute, and the like. Consequently, one will be among those who will be shaded by their charity on the day when there will be no shade. Once the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, looked upon a man who had an overweight stomach. He had a big belly, and he used to eat a lot. And he pointed to the man's stomach with his fingers, and he said, "If this was elsewhere, it would have been better for you." This wasn't an insult to the man. Right? This was a way of telling him, be mindful of what you put in your stomach. Right? Be mindful of what you're eating. Now you might be saying, okay, Tahir, that sounds real nice, but I don't know anybody like that. Right? Do any of you know, by show of hands, do any of you know anybody who has these kind of characteristics? I think I know about three people who do this. But I can name contemporary figures in our time who exhibited these characteristics. Some of them Muslim, some of them not. And the three that I'm going to talk about are not Muslim. But they were individuals who took on this discipline of hunger. And they were able to not only transform themselves, but they were able to transform the environment around them and subsequently the world. The first of them is perhaps someone that you've heard of by the name of Mahatma Gandhi, who was a leader of the Indian independence movement during British colonial rule. He died in 1948. He was born to a noble family in India and became a lawyer, and later moved to apartheid South Africa, where he began to develop a strategy of nonviolent resistance to colonialism, tyranny, and oppression. He was Dr. Martin Luther King's inspiration for the nonviolent tactics that he deployed during his struggle against anti-black racism during the civil rights movement in the United States. Gandhi then returned to India and led campaigns to end British colonialism, expand women's rights, create solidarity between religions, and more specifically between Muslims and Hindus. However, he gained the world's attention through his revolutionary method of nonviolent resistance by fasting. Gandhi was a practicing Hindu, and he used fasting as a weapon against British colonialism and violence, the rights of the Dalit people in India, also known as the untouchables, the lowest caste of people in India. His longest fast was for 21 days straight, right? And this was for the purpose of Hindu-Muslim unity. Gandhi was committed to struggling on behalf of the weak, and he's reported to have said that poverty is the worst form of violence, and that the weak can never forgive. Rather, forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. This was Gandhi. Another individual I want to talk about is a woman by the name of Simone Weil. How many people know who Simone Weil is? You never heard of her. The more I read about this woman, the more I am inspired by her. She was an ascetic. She was a French philosopher and a Christian mystic of Jewish ancestry who was known for her empathy for the poor and her empathy for those fighting against the Nazi occupation in Germany. It is said about her that at age 5 or 6, she refused to eat sugar because the French soldiers didn't have any of it during their fight against the Germans. She was 6 years old when she did this. It is also said that her intellect matched her spirituality at a young age, and at the age 12, she mastered Greek. And then after reading the Bhagavad Gita in French, she studied Sanskrit and then mastered that. Right? She went on to become a prolific writer and professor of philosophy, and throughout her life, she refused to eat anything other than the rations that were given to French people under Nazi occupation. That's all she ate for the rest of her life. And this woman was privileged, a philosophy professor in France. And all she ate was rations until the day that she died. Simone Weil once wrote, "Sacrifice is the acceptance of pain, the refusal to obey the animal in oneself, and the will to redeem suffering men through voluntary suffering." Every saint has poured out the water for others, meaning they give freely to others. Every saint has rejected all well-being that would separate him from the suffering of other men. Simone Weil died in England in 1943. She was only 34 years old. Profound woman. If you don't know who she is, you need to read up on her. She's very inspiring. And her work has recently seen a resurgence. She wasn't very popular when she was alive, like most individuals, right, who fight for truth, justice, and equality. Everybody rejects him. You know, we lionize Malcolm X, El Hassan Shabazz. He had very few friends when he died. The same thing with Martin Luther King. Very few friends when he died. Go back and look at some of the old magazines and news clippings of what they were saying about Martin Luther King. They were villainizing him in the media, right? This is often what happens to individuals who stand up for justice. And finally, we want to talk about Cesar Chavez. Cesar Chavez was a Mexican-American labor leader, civil rights activist, and co-founder of the United Farm Workers Union. Chavez was a champion of animal rights. He was a dedicated vegan, and the rights of undocumented workers. His activism helped secure amnesty provisions for undocumented workers in the Immigration Reform and Control Act that passed in 1986. Cesar Chavez was also a very spiritual person who undertook numerous fasts to bring attention to the plight of migrant farm workers in California. He was a devout Catholic whose nonviolent activism brought attention to the plight of migrant farm workers there, as well as his own faith inspired him to fast, as did the strategy of nonviolent resistance revolutionized by Gandhi. He went on a 25-day fast that some called a hunger strike. He actually didn't call them hunger strikes, as a means to protest against California growers of table grapes who treated workers unfairly. 17 million people supported Cesar Chavez, including the then Senator of New York City, Robert F. Kennedy. Chavez engaged in numerous hunger strikes that he actually referred to as spiritual fasts, garnering international support that led to changes in legislation, some of which include higher wages for farm workers, collective bargaining rights for farm workers, and the reduction of the usage of poisonous pesticides on grapes. Chavez died in 1993 at the age 66. And I mention these contemporary figures. Why? As examples of people who use fasting as a tool to transform themselves and then the world around them. When I asked our sister, the MSA president, Sharifa Abdullah, well, what do you want me to talk about? She had a very ambitious goal, and I commend her. She said, I want students to know what they can do individually so that they can affect hunger and poverty globally. I'm like, whoa, that's pretty lofty. But it can be done. How can it be done? You act locally, right? You heard this phrase before, but you think globally. Well, how does that affect things globally, Tahir? That's because Gandhi, Simone Weil, and Cesar Chavez all acted locally. And I'm talking about them in Chicago right now, right? Gandhi did his work in India. Simone Weil did her work in France. Cesar Chavez did his work in my home state, in California, right? But it had international repercussions because they were very disciplined, very dedicated, and they drew from a really deep well of spirituality that was within them, and they used fasting as a catalyst to motivate them, to train them, right? To train themselves, and to bring awareness to their cause. So let us be clear here. Hunger born of poverty and marginalization is neither glamorous or sexy. It is a problem that we in our time have to contend with. Those of us who incorporate fasting as a form of spiritual discipline are able to empathize with those who are in need, but nothing compares to real human pain and suffering from hunger. Those who live on the west side and south side of Chicago in food deserts know this. And for those who aren't familiar with food deserts, many of you probably are, Food deserts are communities that lack fresh, healthy, and nutritious food. They lack readily available access to this food. And on the flip side, they have numerous, abundant access to junk food, to fried foods, and to food that has little nutritional value. The corner store effect, right? And the Chicago Department of Health put out a study called Years of Potential Life Loss. And they created this index that showed many of these neighborhoods on the south side where food deserts are, and on the west side where these food deserts are, the average lifespan of these individuals are 3 or 4 times lower than those living in other neighborhoods that have access to nutritious food. So what can you do about it? You can join the effort to transform some of these communities from food deserts to oases by getting involved with the Food for Life as a Human Right campaign, an initiative led by the Inner City Muslim Action Network. Can someone please pass out the flyers that I have in my bag? I don't work for Imam, but I support what they do. And they are leading a campaign called Food Justice, Corner Stores, and Race Relations in the Hood. This is a call to action as a part of their Muslim-run campaign for health, wellness, and healing that will take place at the Chicago Theological Seminary on the south side of 60th and Dorchester, right across the street from the University of Chicago where I work. This will be happening on Thursday, November 6th, from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And I want to invite you all to come and participate, because we don't want to just talk about these issues, we want to put our hands in it. And I was reading on the website that there's some really excellent work being done to help people in Africa, people in India, and people in other parts of the world. Prophet Muhammad and others are reported to have said, charity is best at home. Start at home. Right? And this is the area where we live. We have individuals who don't have access. We can do something about it by not only raising awareness, but there's more that we can do. Just a little bit of background. The Muslim Run campaign addresses a long history of injurious and unfair business practices, escalating racial tensions and unhealthy food options at inner city corner stores in Chicago. Since its launch in 2007, Muslim Run has grown to focus on a couple of 4 critical issues. 1, developing alternative business models for Muslim-run businesses on the south side of Chicago, using public policy to promote lasting change toward food justice, launching an education campaign that stressed the benefits of leading healthier lifestyles, and healing racial tensions between Muslim store owners and their black patrons. And there are 3 tracks that you can participate in if you're interested in working in this area. The first one is the alternative business model track. We believe that small businesses, once the engine of America's economy, are quickly diminishing. Reviving small businesses can be an alternative to the currently popular solution of attracting discount stores back to low-income communities that have been abandoned in the past. Small, locally owned businesses can provide a viable solution to the food desert crisis ravaging low-income communities. They can act as economic engines of community development, and they can return control over their economy back to local neighborhoods. That's one track. The other track is policy changes. Small business owners will face increasing challenges from discount and mega stores that are moving in. And we seek policy initiatives to make small businesses viable competitors in the changing economy. These initiatives and solutions include grants and microloans for local corner stores to stock fresh food. The goal is to give small businesses the chance to do the right thing and to make money at the same time. Supporting small businesses would be a more effective use of public money than corporate largesse. Then there's the education component in campaign. We understand that changing store owner practices is useless without altering resident desires. Accordingly, our education campaign and curriculum will reintroduce ideas of healthy eating and living. We will present principles and programs of healthy living to community residents and store owners by using pamphlets, flyers, posters, songs, videos distributed throughout the corner stores. And finally, and I think this is, in my opinion, the most important one, we want to make and be about the business of building good community relations. One thing that must take place is racial healing. The food and liquor stores that are commonly found in the black and low-income areas are owned by Arab immigrants. Many of them are Muslims, unfortunately. And tensions between these immigrant store owners and the surrounding black residents are well known. Since the 1990s, these tensions have become increasingly common and dangerous. And as a Muslim organization located in a low-income neighborhood, man understands the marginalization on both sides. I believe that while working towards a solution to the food desert crisis, we can also seize the opportunity for healing and building relationships between Arab store owners and black residents in areas like the West Side and South Side. I think I've said enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Timer. Hopefully we're all able to retract some reflection points from that. I didn't know fasting had that many benefits, honestly, and I've been doing it since I was 5 or 6. Right now, I'm gonna invite you all to have a little opportunity to be generous. Today we've eaten a free meal, and normally I don't know how much we pay for this, maybe $9, $10. We have 5 people spread around the room with boxes. And we encourage you to go through your bags and your wallets, and whatever spare change or loose bills you have lying around, we invite you to donate them to 3 charities. The names of the charities are inside the booklet, the front cover of the booklets on your tables. There's 1 local, 1 national, and 1 global charity on there. So I'm going to put a timer on my phone for 60 seconds. While you guys are getting your money out of your bags, I'm just going to give you a quick. Just kidding, we're gonna have it for 2 minutes. So even more time. But while you guys are getting your stuff together, I just want to give you an overview of the rest of the night. We're gonna have a Miracle Minute, which is this Miracle 2 minutes actually, which is gonna happen right now. And then we're gonna invite you all to grab some dessert from the bag. And then we're gonna proceed to our raffle, which is the final event of the day. We have gift cards and other items from local businesses that have been donated to us. So keep an eye out for the number on your raffle ticket. And with that, we will conclude around 6:30.
Okay, so
1 second, I'm gonna put the timer on. And when I say go, we'll have our 5 people. They have boxes, so keep an eye out for them. On your mark, get set, go. during finals week or something. I don't know. So I'm gonna hand over the mic to Zainab and Namra. Oh, sorry, Zainab and Muhammad, who will be conducting the raffle.
Okay, the first five are going to be
What if I win a raffle?
$5 liquid split gift card. All right, the first one is 280485. Okay, 280485.
Yeah, go. Yeah!
All right, the next one is 280390.
Check again.
Again. 280390. 280472. All right, the next one is 280378. Oh, first five. Again, it's 280378. 378. 280378. All right, the next one is 280433.
Mama, are you even checking your tickets? Okay, I'm gonna give you one.
Oh, I hate you so much.
All right, the next one is 280382. And again, it's 280382.
Stop.
280450.
Huh?
That one?
These are.
Next one is 280428.
I almost took the whole tablecloth with me.
All right, the next gift is 2 Starbucks coffee. 2 Starbucks coffee. All right, the number is 280470. Next number is 280534. Okay, guys, the next is Starbucks treats. number is going to be 280366. 280423. Next number is 280436. Next ticket is a $10 Lola Coaster or gift card.
So much I can help.
Number is 280541.
Wait, 8.
280501.
The food is over there. I don't want this thing's finished.
Next one is $10 for pizza. Number is 280551. 280474. 280418. 280411. Next one from Metropolis, $5 gift card. 280437. 280422. Next number is 280368. 280507. 280483. Next up is a Starbucks Plus. It's going to be 280359. Alright, 280509. 280.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, the last one is 280484. 280443.
Thank you, everyone. Congratulations to all of you who won prizes. This concludes our event. If there's any more go back and grab some. And keep the cause in mind and attend more Hunger Week events. There's going to be a ton this week. Thank you and have a good night. Wait, I forgot to thank everybody who made this event possible. Of course, Hunger Week, to our Hunger Week team, thank you so much for not having to advertise, guys. Also to the MSA, the President, Sharifa Abdullah, Zainab Bozai, who was the organizer, who was for the past month. She has not slept, she has cried because of this Fastathon dinner. All the decorations you see were her. If you look at those beautiful centerpieces, that was all Zainab. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to do some little announcements about events happening this week. On Thursday, there is a workshop about the purpose of life. Normally, this workshop goes for $200. This is free for all Loyola students, so please make sure you get you have a chance to go over there and check it out. It will be on this Thursday, so just look around for some flyers. Again, Hunger Week may be over at the end of this week, but there is a bag lunch event on November 14th. Then the following Monday, on November 17th, we have another speaker event. So just keep your eye out for more events. Thank you and have a good night.
Yes. What time are you What nursery? Ask her. Ask her. I thought you were the driver. Get out of the picture! Get out!
Okay, I want to be in it.
Get out! That's haram! Stop!
It's not haram. I'm not touching no one.
You can get some girls in trouble if you're in the background.